Russell Brand, from comedy star to global scandal. He was once the wild child of British comedy, a Hollywood actor, a YouTube philosopher with millions of loyal fans. Russell Brand's life seemed to be a story of endless reinvention. From chaotic stand-up stages, to red carpets, to spiritual podcasts and political commentary. But in 2023, his career collapsed almost overnight. Multiple women stepped forward with shocking allegations. Leading British newspapers and television networks launched an investigation. YouTube cut off his income stream in an instant. And suddenly, Russell Brand, once celebrated for his charisma and intelligence, stood at the center of one of the most divisive scandals of our time. This is the story of how Russell Brand went from comedian to accused predator, and why his scandal still divides millions. Act 1. The Rise of Russell Brand. Russell Brand's journey begins far from the glamour of Hollywood. Born in Essex, England, in 1975, he had a turbulent childhood. His parents divorced when he was still a baby. His mother battled repeated illnesses, leaving him to grow up in loneliness and instability. By his teenage years, Brand was already experimenting with drugs, alcohol, and escapism. Comedy became his escape route. In the early 2000s, Brand emerged on the UK comedy circuit. He wasn't like other comics. He was provocative, unpredictable, often offensive, but magnetic. His long hair, eccentric outfits, and sharp wit made him impossible to ignore. By 2004, he was hosting shows on MTV and the BBC. His humor thrived on chaos. Sometimes it was brilliant. Other times, it crossed the line. He was fired more than once for controversial comments. But the more outrageous he became, the bigger his audience grew. Hollywood soon came calling. Brand stole scenes in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, 2008, before starring in Get Him to the Greek, 2010. He even voiced characters in animated films like Despicable Me. For a moment, it seemed like Russell Brand had made the leap from eccentric British comic to international movie star. But Hollywood didn't hold him for long. By the mid-2010s, Brand was reinventing himself again. This time, not as a comedian, but as a thinker, a critic of the system, a spiritual guide. Act 2. The Guru and the Digital Age. Russell Brand's second act wasn't about movies or stand-up. It was about ideas. He published books on recovery and spirituality. He spoke openly about his struggles with addiction to heroin, alcohol, and sex. His honesty drew people in. But soon, he went further. On YouTube, Brand built an empire. Millions of subscribers tuned in to hear his critiques of government, media, big pharma, and global elites. During the COVID pandemic, his channel exploded in popularity as he questioned lockdowns, vaccines, and mainstream narratives. For some, Brand had become a modern philosopher, a rebel speaking truth against powerful institutions. For others, he was a conspiracy theorist feeding distrust and paranoia. Either way, he was no longer just a comedian. He was a cultural figure with real influence. And that made what happened next all the more shocking. Act 3. The 2023 investigation. In September 2023, British media dropped a bombshell. The Times, the Sunday Times, and Channel 4 released a joint investigation into Russell Brand. 4 women came forward publicly, accusing him of sexual assault and rape. The alleged incidents occurred between 2006 and 2013, when Brand was at the height of his fame, starring in movies and touring the world. One woman said she had a relationship with Brand when she was just 16 years old. Another described being pressured into sex, saying Brand used drugs and his celebrity status to control situations. Channel 4's documentary featured interviews, testimonies, and detailed accounts of his behavior. The allegations were devastating. Headlines across Britain labeled him a Predator. Social media exploded with debate. Was Russell Brand finally being exposed, or was he being targeted? Act 4. The Fallout. The backlash came quickly. The BBC removed past shows and interviews featuring Brand from their archives. YouTube demonetized his channel, cutting off his primary source of income. Police in London and Los Angeles opened investigations into the allegations. Even the British Parliament debated whether online platforms should take responsibility for hosting controversial figures. For someone who built his persona around rebellion, the punishment was swift and public. His career, his reputation, and even his income streams were suddenly in freefall. Act 5. Brand strikes back. Russell Brand did not stay silent. Within days, he posted a video response. Sitting in front of a camera, calm but defiant, he denied all allegations. He insisted that every relationship in his past was consensual. But he went further, framing the accusations as part of a coordinated attack. He suggested that media and political forces were working together to silence him, precisely because he was speaking uncomfortable truths about power and corruption. To his supporters, this made perfect sense. They already distrusted mainstream media. To them, Brand was a martyr, proof that anyone who challenges the establishment will be destroyed. To his critics, this was a familiar tactic. Instead of addressing the serious accusations, he was turning the scandal into a conspiracy story, making himself the victim rather than the accused. Act 6. The scandal grows in 2024. The story didn't fade in 2024. It only grew darker. More women came forward with accusations. Police confirmed receiving over 10 formal complaints. Russell Brand's comedy tours were partially canceled. Broadcasters cut ties. And yet, paradoxically, his online audience kept growing. On YouTube, he was demonetized. But on alternative platforms like Rumble, Telegram, and Spotify podcasts, his influence actually increased. Millions followed him to spaces that prided themselves on free speech. The paradox was striking. In the official world, Russell Brand was being canceled. But in the alternative world, he was thriving. Act 7. The bigger picture. Why does this scandal matter? Because it's not only about Russell Brand. It's about the culture we live in today. The allegations against him connect directly to the #MeToo movement, a global wave of women speaking out about abuse and power in entertainment. But at the same time, his defense, that this is all a conspiracy, taps into the new digital distrust of mainstream institutions. Russell Brand became the flashpoint of two worlds colliding: the fight for accountability and the rise of online counterculture. Act 8. The unanswered questions. Today, Russell Brand continues to publish videos. He still has millions of loyal followers. But official investigations are ongoing, and the shadow over him grows darker. So where does the truth lie? Is Russell Brand the victim of political persecution, punished for daring to speak against powerful elites? Or is he a predator, hiding behind charm and charisma, who exploited women during his rise to fame? And perhaps the most important question, in an era of digital tribes and media distrust, how do we decide who to believe? Conclusion. Russell Brand's story is more than a personal scandal. It is a cultural mirror. It shows us how fame can protect, how the internet can divide, and how power, whether in comedy, Hollywood, or YouTube, can be both intoxicating and destructive. From stand-up stages to Hollywood films, from spiritual podcasts to political rants, Russell Brand has reinvented himself again and again. But now, for the first time, he faces something he may not be able to escape: a reckoning with the past. And so, we leave you with this question: can Russell Brand ever rebuild trust? Or is his story a warning that in the digital age, every secret, every scandal eventually comes to light?